Hello again. So we're back here with another DDK to SDK series video, and we're going to play a game on PandaNet today. But I did want to bring in a little bit more Tsumego. I'm not going to be doing Tsumego in front of you, but remember in the first episode, we talked about how we're going to focus on this easy collection here, these 3 pink problems. Some people might call it purple. I don't actually know. And the techniques and ideas that are in just these 3 problems, the amount of reading needed to solve them, is definitely enough to get you to the SDK level. But it's good to actually keep practicing a lot of these same problems without them being exactly the same. So the next step that I often recommend people is actually this Korean Problem Academy. We skip the Tsumego Dictionary entirely for now. Maybe we can come back to it in the future. But the Korean Problem Academy. This first book is basically just all of these same problems from these first 3 volumes, I'm going to call them, put into 200 problems to sort of test your knowledge, see if you did actually learn the techniques. And then Korean Problem Academy number 2, we don't want to go to 3 and 4 yet, but number 2 is where it's like a more advanced form of a lot of these problems, like a more advanced way of making seki. Advanced being you have to pay a little bit more attention to your liberties, a little bit more attention to your weaknesses / cutting points, right? I don't really think you have to do a ton of problems all the time, but making sure to get a lot of variation on these very easy problems is extremely useful. Something I want to say again before we get to the game is if we look at these problem sets, one reason why I like doing it here on Tsumego Hero is that it tells you the percentage you got correct, your accuracy, and the average amount of time it took you to complete the problems. Your goal with all of these collections is to do 90% accuracy or higher. Also, be able to solve them within a Byoyomi period. 30 seconds or 20 seconds, whatever is the most common Byoyomi period you use in your games, that's when you want to be able to solve these. Now, if you did not get 90% accuracy on any of these, you do want to redo them. You take a little bit of a break, like you take a week off of doing any of the Tsumego, and then you go back and you do those collections again, because your goal is to get 90% accuracy or higher. And then again, your average time to be as low as you can make it without purposefully trying to speed through the problems. All right, we're back in PandaNet here. And remember, we're still playing that specific opening of only 3 4s. We are still trying to reduce overdoing any sort of invasion. And we're still waiting for our groups to be as strong as possible before we even really attack. And we're not just talking about our local groups, we're also talking generally about most of the groups on the board. We want them to be close to being alive before we really try to fight back. And remember, the point of these games is not necessarily to win. Your goal is to practice this defensive idea, get used to it, and really understand it as best you can. So let's get into a game and see how this works out. All right, we got a game, and I am black. Let's say hi to our opponent. Now I almost did a 4-4. We're doing 3 4s. We're doing 3 4s. I'll get this down one of these days. All right, it's 3 4. We can face it any direction we want to, but I'm going to do the more common way of doing it for now. I think it's good to practice the common direction so you can practice the standard sort of opening sequences you might see, because after we enclose this corner, I believe this is called the 1-3-5 opening. So it's something you could go and study if you really wanted to. Remember, if they approach us low or high, we're always taking the corner. So here we're going to be kicking. After they extend, hopefully, we'll then jump here to make sure we have the corner. All right, they did not extend. What we should do is we should now Hane. If they don't extend, we need to punish that to some degree by playing the Hane over the top. This is strengthening our corner by quite a lot. We could even push one more time, threatening the Hane ahead of 2 stones. We don't necessarily have to, but if they turn, there's something that's really important. So always think about what your opponent can do. If they turn, they have a perfect 3-space extension away from their wall. So I'm going to push one more time, threaten that Hane ahead of 2 stones. They extended. We could push again to threaten the Hane ahead of 3, but they do have some backup. I think it's still totally possible, but you can stop now if you want to. And now that we have this wall, I want to approach the bottom side. When you have a wall of some sort, you need some sort of extension from it. You could play a normal extension, but I like to prioritize approaching a little bit more. Either one is going to be acceptable. Okay, they're peeping. We just stay connected when our opponent peeps. They are wanting to attack our corner somehow. So in order to make our corner strong, I'm going to play this sliding move. This is making sure we have more than enough of a base. That's the entire point here. I think our corner is probably strong enough, but as I said, I want to make sure we have a base. So this slide makes sure we're strong. Now they're pincering our stone in the corner, so we're just going to take the corner. Remember, we're not playing any complicated josekis. This may be one of the more complicated ones. So this one's a little bit different. I think we did talk about this in the first video. If they do this, we just block, or we connect, and we're normally supposed to go down, but they attach to us. I don't remember if I mentioned it in this series yet, but when you have this sort of shape where you're attached at a 1-point jump, the most common move is to wedge. This wedge creates cutting points for your opponent and also makes your group extremely solid. Yep. And now our group is technically alive in the corner, and one of the punishments here is actually cutting and doing a lot of damage to our opponent. So I'm not going to worry about that. You could see the corner as being a little bit hard to live with, so I wouldn't mind adding one more move here. So I think I will actually Hane and connect. What we're looking for in the corner is to make it bigger than an L group, which we'll get into as we get along. But that would be these 3 stones here plus 1 down. So this move here, bigger than this group here. And we should be more than big enough now. So now we can play away. They do have this wall, so we could do a splitting move to really make sure they can't build anything with this wall. Or we could still continue to approach our opponent. Either one is going to be fine. I want to focus on making sure their walls don't do very much. So I'm going to do a splitting. So I was thinking about doing a splitting move, but I think it's hard to find the perfect move. We don't want to be too close to the wall. So if we play here and they push us towards the wall, we only have that 2-space extension, which is a little bit too close. We have to play even further away and it becomes a little complicated. So instead of splitting, we're going to approach the top side. Okay, they're playing a move over here. It's a little bit strange that they did not decide to respond, but let's keep it as simple as we can. We're going to use that same sort of joseki in the bottom left, in the upper left here, without the pincer. This is using knowledge that we already have to try to find another answer. So just taking the 3-3 should always be fine here. Yep, just connect. The next thing that they were supposed to do is they were supposed to play another move here. And it's threatening our cutting points. Now that they didn't do that, we can Hane at the head of 2 stones, and we feel really strong. This is another time, I want to point this out, there's another time where we can really cut their groups up. So if we really want to, we can just cut here directly. So do we want to do that now? Our corner is really strong. Our other corner is really strong. Our other group is really strong. We have all 4 corners, it looks like. So I think we do want to take advantage of the Hane at head of 2 stones by cutting. Normally, we would always just play this one, but I want to introduce just a little bit at a time what we can do, right? Because I talk about the shape all the time. So let's cut here and see why this is a bad idea. There's Ashari from underneath because I could have captured the stones. I could still potentially capture the stones. They still have to keep pushing. So I extend. The turn would still do a lot of damage. The Hane had 3 stones, but it's the turn instead. So they're still not alive if I turn. And now if we extend, they might be alive at this point. So you could go back and try to capture if this ladder works. And if we read it all out, the ladder might actually work. This stone's in the way, so you'd have to read this out. But I'm not going to worry about the ladder. What I was going to worry about is just extending again. The other option is just getting as many liberties as possible. Because if we have more liberties, we can actually just net the stone instead. We could keep extending if we wanted to as well. But we're going to go back and make sure that this stone does never comes back to haunt us. The Hane in the corner, we just want to block. We don't need to worry. There was no reason for them to play that move. And we can actually extend again here because we're still threatening to cut them off. So I really like this extension again. All right, they finally jumped ahead, which they could have done a little bit earlier. And so now we don't need to worry about any of this anymore. You could push one more time. Because of this push, you can push and cut in and capture a stone. It's a very common shape. So I'm going to do that one more time just for fun. But now we have plenty of liberties on this group and we're very strong. So now that we're done sort of punishing that, right? We didn't kill anything. We didn't do anything too extreme, honestly. All we did was cut and they had to save their stones. That's why they shouldn't have played this Hane. So now we can go back, prevent this corner from being completely surrounded by playing the knight's move here. And we can also end up taking some points on the top at the same time. They're jumping very, very far into the center. which is a little bit weird. They did not respond, so we could push and cut and do some similar stuff that we saw before, but we're just going to continue to take our points. I think I'll do maybe a push first. I don't know. I don't think it really matters too much. So I'll push first, sort of expose the cutting point, which is a good thing to often do. And then we can just jump back. I'm going to take the star point because I like star points. Okay, so now they're going to really try and build this whole center. But like you saw before, we ended up building all of this wall, so it's going to be harder for them to build this center. The first thing you always want to do when focusing on the center of a board and trying to reduce it is look for those weak areas. For example, earlier I talked about how we could push again this R7, R6 group because we have the Hane at the head of 3 stones. So we can still do that. So this is one of the weaknesses we can use to try to come in. If we push here, and they Hane, and then we Hane, and they cut us off, then we can Atari and go down, and then these stones are captured. So let's see if they do that. This is again using that Hane head of 2 and 3 stones in order to get some profit. Okay, they did not allow us to cut here and extend down to try to kill these stones. So now we can just connect, and we've gotten rid of the center already. It didn't take that much effort because we just looked for that weakness and proved that they had to do something there. So this is where we could look for another weakness, right? We pushed up here and exposed this cutting point. All of our groups are super strong. Now we can just cut at this cutting point. But we do have to wonder about what we're going to get. If we cut here and they save this stone, what are we doing? We're probably pushing through over here maybe? Or if they cut here and they don't save this stone, then we're capturing this stone, right? So we have to have whatever plan already in place before we play any of these cuts. So cut here, they save the stone, we're just going to push through. All right, that's my plan. If they don't save the stone, we capture the stone. So let's cut now. Okay, they save the stone. We don't need to save ours. This was just a cutting thing to get a little bit of profit. So now we can Atari through here. We could even push again if we really want to try to get something, but we're going to Atari through here and get some profit. We're cutting off the stone on the outside because they had this weakness here. Now we just need to make sure our weakness, there's nothing they can use, there's no way they can use it, right? So we can either fix this here or we can gain more liberties. I think in this case, we want to fix our cutting point directly. And then we've gained a couple points here. So let's just fix our cutting point. And they're extending, which they don't need to do. They can save those stones if they really want to. But again, we're just going to look at shapes. If we push here, we have the Hane at the head of 3 stones. And actually, because this cutting point, it's more like the Hane at the head of 2 stones because of the amount of liberties the group has. So let's push again, because this Hane would be very annoying to deal with. Now, we're not trying to kill the 2 stones on the inside. We're just looking at the shape here. They didn't respond, so now we can Hane, threatening to capture the 3 stones. And again, we can extend here, getting more liberties on these 2 stones, connecting them up on multiple sides, and threatening to capture the 3 stones again. They're cutting us off here, and they missed the fact that we can now capture these 3 stones. Really, really important to always double check if your stones are safe. Yep, capture. Now we got some profit already. And they fixed their weakness here, which was probably good. We do have to worry about these stones here a little bit. If they attach to our stones here, this is a shape that we've looked at a few times, right? This kick into an extend. If they attach here, they can get some forcing moves. So I'm going to jump to make sure that attachment doesn't work. Remember, we're just preventing them from doing stuff. Now the group has jumped out towards the center. We could decide to keep attacking if we really, really want to, but I don't think we really have to. We can probably just start looking at some end game stuff here. Yeah, I think just something like these basic extensions or second line moves, I guess I should say. And we can even Hane and connect. Because it's already end game time. On this side, I actually really like this idea of the Hane again, because this next Hane is something they have to worry about because they have a cutting point here. They don't have that many liberties. So I'm going to Hane over here as well. And yes, some move in the center might be more important. I'm going to capture the stone directly, by the way. Some move in the center might be more important, but as long as your moves are making points in some way, then you're good to go. Here, I want to show you a nice squeeze just for fun. You could attach to this and squeeze. That would also be fine. You could also cut and squeeze. So I don't know which one I want to do. Maybe we'll do the attachment just for fun. The idea is that we're using the shortage of liberties, which you should really have a better grasp on if you've done a lot of the Tsumego, to get a little bit of an advantage. So this attachment here, threatening to capture the stones, is really nice. They block, so now we can Atari. And we got a little bit more profit, just a little bit at a time. Yes, there are some weaknesses in their area, like with this Knight's move here. They actually have a little bit to worry about. It's a little bit difficult to actually handle. But it's also something where if we make a mistake, we're going to be in trouble. So I'm not going to worry about that. And I think the only thing we're going to worry about in the center area is, let's see, maybe just jumping towards the center from here. I want to do a further jump, but I'm going to do it nice and simple. If we jump from here, we can jump even further in. Okay. They are trying to cut us off, I guess. We just want to make sure to keep them separated. Yep, we're keeping it as separated as we can. Extend down, yep. This is somewhat of a complicated thing, so that's a little bit annoying. But I wasn't looking at it, so it is my own fault. So we'll capture the stone, and they're going to jump into the corner. All right, so we are in a little bit of trouble. Pretty likely a little bit of trouble here. Something you can do, this is a little bit more advanced, is you can push and cut here to try to get something, but I don't know if it actually works in this situation. So let's just see how it goes and see what happens here. Yep, we're just going to extend. And this is normally something you can do, but as I said, I don't think it actually works. Because if we Atari here and throw in and connect, we may not have enough liberties to really do anything. But this is a Tombstone Tetsuji. It's only really a Tetsuji if it works. That's the honest truth there. But yeah, we connect here, and we'll see how it goes. They messed up a little bit here. If they just connected, it's one eye versus no eye. So we can Atari here. They capture some stones, we capture stones. It's just a trade. Yep, capture, and then they capture. Or they can capture back here too. But yeah, see, even when I'm focusing a lot on defense, I will still miss a lot of these sort of situations. So we did lose something there, entirely my fault. But that's okay. We still prevented the center from really being anything by jumping in here. And we can even just go in a little bit deeper now because there aren't that many moves on the second line that are that big. Like maybe we can do this one, for example. This one could be good for now. And then there's also like maybe an attachment over here. Attachment here and here. This could work. Let's do this diagonal here. Oh, they're letting me go up, which is kind of interesting. So I guess I will just go up here. We'll just jump or extend. Either one's going to be fine. We're going to capture some stones, which is nice. Again, they have the 1-point jump move attached to our 1-point jump. So the wedge is a very strong way to respond. Yep, just connect. Now with all these cutting points they have to worry about. And then here we can just Hane and completely surround this area. So we've got some extra benefit for fun. And we do have some cutting points, some potential Aji. Something you could do is play this nice empty triangle to get rid of it all. It's up to you if you want to do that or not. I think I will, just for fun. Because I think it's funny that I'm playing this really ugly empty triangle. But if it works, it works. Our group, it doesn't really matter if we're surrounded at this point. This is all just end game stuff right now. So we can poke in a little bit more towards the center. We can either jump here or even do the diagonal. I don't think it matters which one I do. So I'll jump. Either one's going to be fine. Our goal is just now reducing this center area. And they didn't respond to our jump, so we're going to push here, threatening to cut off the top side. And we can Hane, also threatening to cut off the top side. All right, now we just need to protect our cutting point. And by doing this, we've reduced all the points in the center, so we feel pretty good. It's really hard for them to build anything at this point. The only thing we have to worry about is, do our cuts work? I don't really think they do at this exact point, but when you have so many 1-point jumps in a row, sometimes it is good to turn and fix something like this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn here, and we're going to make sure that our jumps here are perfectly safe. I like to do this Hane because we're threatening the Atari on their stones. And now everything is solid. So you could jump in, you could do whatever sort of you want here. We're going to play some more fun endgame, just like a Hane here is going to be good. It doesn't really matter if we go further. We can do a push here, which is threatening the Hane ahead of 2 stones. We can push in and then Hane. Hane here. We're still able to push in and Atari and maybe do something. So I have to be a little bit careful. And again, we're just focused on a little bit of details here in the center. This should be fine. All right, we're just going to pull back, make sure we can't get cut. I really do want to do this, Hane, but it doesn't work. But let's just do some basic moves here. Just push in, nothing too complicated. Extend in this corner is getting really large now. But I think I want to push in here first, sort of expose these cutting points, and then extend down. It feels a little bit more threatening than just extending down. I don't know if that's actually threatening anything. I guess it is taking away points, but I don't know if it's actually threatening anything. So we can at least just Atari, which feels pretty good. And then maybe to make sure that there is nothing, we can protect this cutting point, threaten to capture the stone. And then we can maybe protect this cutting point as well. Make sure there's nothing there that they can use. All right, connect. Just block. We don't want them coming into our area. I'm not exactly sure what that is threatening, but we can at least threaten to capture 2 stones, which would be really nice. And we can break into their couple points that are left here in the center. And they decide to make points in this area instead, which is acceptable. So we can just keep coming in. All right, now we've gotten rid of all that. Maybe we can finally do this push here since they never Atari'd us, and we'll pull back. There's a double Atari here, so that doesn't quite work. They were supposed to just protect their cutting point, but they did not. Yep, now we're able to capture here, so we feel pretty good. Yep, we can just connect solidly. We don't need to try to play a ko. There's no reason for that. I don't think I'm doing any kos right now anyway. And then if we, I think if we want to, if they Hane here, then we may have to connect on this side eventually. So turning here like this, threatening to come in is one way to handle that. I'm not really sure what this move is doing. So we're going to push inside their area. They don't need to pull back or anything. The Atari, I don't think it does anything for now. We're just going to push into their area a little bit at a time. So all these little pushes everywhere. Instead of Atari, I'm going to push and cut. There's actually a better order of moves often. And this cut here is starting a double Atari. So we're good here. We're almost done with the game. So now we can peep here, threatening the Atari again. Maybe threaten to capture the top side. I think if we really want to be as defensive as possible, we could also defend this bottom left corner at this point. And just connect solidly is often really good. If you really are worried about eye shape, you can do a hanging connection of some sort. I'm just going to connect solidly. We want to make sure that we don't get cut off. And it's just a bunch of small end game from this point. So we'll probably quickly get through these last few moves. All right, my opponent passed here. Should be the end of the game. So let's make sure we choose all these dead stones everywhere and click done. So I do end up winning by 35 points basically. And even though I did make a big mistake in the upper right. Now, they could have actually captured the entire thing. If we go back, I really want to highlight this. We go all the way back here, or wherever it was. A lot of in-game. Zooming back. There we go. I wanted to show this sort of thing off, but honestly, it does not work. If they just make an eye here, then I can't take liberties from the outside because the eye versus no eye concept, which we haven't really gotten to yet. I figured I'd show this off at least a little bit since I did make a mistake, but they did mess up when they took a liberty instead of taking an eye. The eye is more important in this particular situation. Not always more important. Usually if your opponent has a lot of liberties on the outside position, right? So these 2 liberties here, Q and R15, these are the outside liberties. And so any inside liberties belong to white when they have an eye. That's something we will definitely be getting into when we get to the SDK ranks, this sort of capturing race idea. making more liberties than your opponent, that sort of idea. But even though we made this mistake, even if we had lost everything, as you saw, we were still 35 points ahead. So even if we did lose everything there, we were probably even still 10 points ahead. And that is because of some of the basic shape mistakes they made earlier on in the game. And you notice that even though I lost this corner, I still just kept playing those basic moves because it's still just about making sure you play those moves, not about winning. So I made sure to stay basic, stay calm, and not panic and try to jump into my opponent's area, try to really force something new to happen. This is very common to do. When you make a mistake, you want to force something. You don't need to do that. Now, just to highlight the shape of mistakes that our opponent made a few times here, but all the way back to the first one, this Hane here. When they got the Hane ahead of 2 stones of their own, they Hane'd back, but we already had a stone protecting our group. We had our stone protecting our cutting point, which means that we are the ones who can just cut directly. We're solid everywhere on the board, so we didn't necessarily need to worry about it. And so now we can just cut directly. This means that white can't build that giant moyo that they were threatening to build. This is the thing that got them very far behind in the game. If they just played simple and jumped away to d14, then the game would have been normal and fine, not that big of a deal. Maybe I win, maybe I don't win. It's like an even game, probably. But because they played this slight shape mistake, they didn't die. They even killed me in this game, but they didn't die. And I just kept extending. I captured the cutting stone, and I got to keep extending here, really flattening their moyo, right? They had this wall here, and now they just have third line territory right next to their wall. So it's really flattened, not really what they wanted. And then again later, when they go to try to build the center some more, they jumped out here, but I can push. This is again the head of 2 and 3 stones. It's the same exact shape. This shape is so important in all of our games. If they Hane here, I can Hane back. And you know what? Let me actually open this up real quick so I can show you. All right, I actually have it opened up. I should probably just show you. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. If they decide to cut, we can Atari and extend. And even if they take away liberties, we can take away liberties using our other group. And now they only have 2, and we have more than 2, significantly more than 2. So their stones are just dead. Right? If they block this way again, we don't even need another move. So let's just play a simple thing here, right? If they play this one, we can still just capture the stones. We have so many liberties. So they don't necessarily want to give up their stones so easily. And they obviously can't let us capture, right? Doing this one to try underneath and capture, that'd be too good for black. So they made a shape mistake here. They need to just extend back, right? They have a Hane head of 2 and 3 stones. They need to keep extending to make sure that that doesn't harm them. And then we can just do a diagonal here to break into the center. Or instead of really cutting the stones off by taking a liberty, which is what happened in the game, right? We're taking a liberty off of the center stone, which makes the center stone weak. But if they just extended, we're not going to take that liberty away, which makes the center stone a lot stronger. You'll notice that these punishments that I'm pointing out are not really that severe for our opponent. They're losing liberties on a group, or they're getting flattened to the third line, but they're not dying, and there's nothing extreme happening. These are very basic, actual punishments that you'll see in real games. Killing a group is not a punishment for a basic mistake. It's a punishment for a very big mistake. Your opponent should almost never die unless they make a very big mistake. And we even had one last sort of problem with their shape that I want to make sure to point out before we're done. I had pushed in here, created a cutting point, and so now I'm able to use this cutting point. They should have defended, actually. Like this part in the middle doesn't really matter again. They need to actually defend the place where I cut. That's what they needed to do. If they fix this, now their shape is really strong, all their groups are really strong, and I just put a little bit of damage on 2 stones. It's not really that big of a deal. But because they didn't do that, we got to take advantage a little bit more of their shape. Very, very basic way to take advantage to. We're not even trying to save our stone. We're just pushing through, and we're good to go. We even went back and protected. If we really wanted to be severe, I want to point this out again here. With this move coming out here, we can actually just surround, and those stones are probably just dead. We probably win by a very large amount of points instead of just a couple. Yeah, so even though I made a mistake, even though we were the ones that actually died in this game, we still came out ahead because we played proper shape most of the time, except for one time, but most of the time. And they played improper shape at least 3 times that were punishable in a very simple way. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this game. I hope this was very helpful. I hope you guys are having a good day. Have fun.